I'm so sorry. I don't think we heard anything you just
I
said.
didn't hear anything. Sorry.
Not, yep. Still can't hear you. So sorry. I would try undoing your headphones and putting them back in. Sometimes that helps.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm going to do that really quickly. Again, the housekeeping. You see the information on the screen. That's what I'm going to go over really quickly. But welcome to the Virtual College Exploration for All Indiana Students, sponsored by the Indiana Association for College Admission Counseling and StriveScan. Thanks for joining us tonight. Thank you to the presenters for being here as well. A few housekeeping announcements before we get started. You can use the Q&A button on your screen to type your questions to the presenters at any time. Your camera and microphone are off, so the panelists cannot see or hear you. This is just one of the many different sessions happening, so be sure to check out the full schedule at inacac.org, inacac.org. This presentation is being recorded and will be available within about a week at the same website, inacac.org. And now I'd like to turn it over to our presenters, and hopefully it works this time. Thank you guys for letting me know.
All right, are we ready to go?
Yes. Sorry. I don't know why it does that. Oh my goodness. Okay. Hi, everyone. Sorry about the technical difficulties. My name is Erin Miller, and I currently work at Alma College. I'm an admissions rep and the coordinator for out-of-state recruitment.
I'm Lindsay Hansen. I'm an assistant director of admissions at Aquinas College, and I do primarily work with all students in Indiana, Illinois, and the Wisconsin area.
And I'm Travis T. Kelly. I'm assistant director of admission at Albion College in Michigan. I work with students from Indiana and then a lot of students from kind of a local area here in Michigan.
So we first wanted to kind of delve into the differences between public and private institutions. Public institutions primarily get their funding from the state, and private institutions get it essentially from themselves, from donors, from alumni, different various ways that are not the government, and also tuition as well. So that's the main difference between public and private institutions, is essentially just the funding and where it comes from. So you may be familiar with these private colleges here in Indiana. So you've got Anderson, Butler, Goshen, and Notre Dame. You'll find similarities between all of them is smaller class sizes, individualized attention, and hands-on learning. The three of us represent private schools from Michigan. So we are familiar with this format, and it's a lot smaller institutions as well. And so that is another difference that you'll see between private and public. There are a lot of myths associated with private colleges. You'll see that sticker price is very scary. And so that kind of scares a lot of people away. And so it's a little misunderstanding, obviously, because it's a myth. But so the myth is that only people from wealthy families can attend. That is not true. Speaking from our experiences, our scholarships help cover a majority of that scary sticker price. And so the costs come down to similar net costs for you and your families between public and private. It's just where that money comes from. And then the other myth is that the private schools are more rigorous in their admissions requirements. Not always the case, depending on what institution you go to. And you'll find some people think that there's a lack of the real college experience. We use the metaphor of it's not like the movies, and you see all of the, crazy experiences and the life-changing adventures that you'll find in college. And people sometimes assume that you will not get that at a private school, which is definitely not the case. It's still higher ed, it's still a college. So that is something that is also a myth.
And then obviously you're going to notice some, we want to talk about public colleges, right? Because this is kind of what this whole session is going to be about, right? The differences between public and private and just kind of different perspectives on both of those. So we wanted to touch on public schools too, of course, even though, yes, the three of us represent private institutions in the state of Michigan. We want to touch on the public school aspect of things as well. Some big names you're going to see here like Purdue, U of I, all those different things. So, you know, public schools, public colleges or universities are going to have larger classrooms. They're going to be bigger schools and with more students attending them. So they're going to have a big school atmosphere, right? They're going to have maybe spread out campuses, maybe campuses in different areas of the city that they're particularly in. So you're going to have, it's just going to be bigger. It's going to be college and your school that you're traditionally used to, just on a much bigger scale. And, you know, with public colleges having bigger, more students attending them, more students in the classroom, going to have lots and lots of alumni that come with that, with the public colleges, public universities. So then we do obviously want to touch on, you know, public college myths as well, right? I mean, there's private school myths, there's public college myths, right? So, right, a big myth that I think we see a lot of the time in movies, like Erin kind of mentioned, you know, those big college parties, no rules, party all the time, you know, because there are more people, there are going to be more parties, that kind of a thing. You're going to find that public schools, you know, are going to have a lot of studying that you're going to need to do regardless. There are more people, yes, but I think that just means there are more clubs, more organizations, that kind of thing. Easy admission requirements, that's not always the case. I think we can think of a couple of public schools that might be a little bit harder to get into. Even just, you know, looking at Michigan or out of state, you know, they are going to have the same kind of admissions requirements, you know, they're going to have the same level of GPA that they're going to want to see, not necessarily less than a private institution, right? Because if we're comparing those two, so it's definitely still going to be rigorous. And that leads into, right, another myth is not challenging courses, right? Because you're just all kind of going in at, you know, bigger groups, bigger class size. So you're all just kind of, you know, herding cattle around and not challenging you at all. And that's, again, not the case. There are, you know, those public institutions, public colleges, are going to definitely be challenging because you are at the end of the day getting an education and going out there to get a degree, to get a job. So there are going to be rigorous courses. Everything about public college, I think overall the myth might be that it's easy going, easy breezy, and you are still there to go to school. You are still going to have kind of different challenges and in your courses and in kind of outside of your courses as well. And then Travis is going to talk a little bit about, you know, the financial aid side of things, because like we mentioned already, that's a big difference.
Yeah, so Erin kind of mentioned at the beginning that the main difference between private and public colleges is the funding that they get, which means that a private college is not getting money from the state or the government in any way. So that means that the sticker price for that school is going to have to be a little bit higher, the private schools, that way we can make money. And that can scare people away because that sticker price is so high that it makes it look unaffordable for families who, for lack of a better word, aren't rich or wealthy. So, but that's not the case. I'm going to try to describe a little bit here why anybody looking at college, no matter what your income level is or what your family situation is, should look at both private and public schools, regardless of what the sticker price is. So basically, I'm going to focus a little bit on the private schools and how we get our price down from that really high sticker price. The public schools are going to do a pretty similar thing to what I described here, but the important thing is that college, like the college that I work at, the sticker price is above $50,000. So it looks like it's really expensive. I think that might be the case for all three of us. And so it can be a little bit daunting for families. But what happens is a student will apply to the school and they will most likely, at a lot of these, especially smaller private schools, are going to get a merit scholarship based on their GPA, test scores if the school takes test scores, but basically it's going to be academic based. Those are usually going to be, for a school with a really high sticker price, those are going to be pretty lofty scholarships. So they might even be, you know, $20,000 to $30,000 scholarships if the sticker price is really high for that school. So that's going to be something that's not based at all on your family's financial status or your income level or anything like that. And those are usually going to be scholarships that are for 4 years that you're going to get each year. So that's the first thing to look at is that merit scholarship, kind of lowering the cost. Then you can look there. There's activity-based scholarships. Those would be fine arts, music. Some institutions, if the private school is not a Division III school, they could offer some athletic scholarships. So those could lower the price. But basically what happens is the biggest part that you should be looking at here is filling out your FAFSA. That's the free application for federal student aid. And basically in really simple terms, what happens is you fill out the FAFSA. It's going to ask you lots of questions about how much money you and your family make. And then it's going to go through an algorithm. It's going to go through a formula, and it's going to spit out a number that you can see on the bottom of the screen there called your EFC, which is expected family contribution, which means based on everything that you filled out about your income level for the last year, this is how much money that formula is telling us as an institution you have available to pay for school for that next school year. And so that's the number that the college I work at, the college Lindsay works at, the college Aaron works at, the public colleges, any college in the country is going to be looking at that number to determine how much you are able to pay for the next year of school. So it doesn't matter. I always joke around at my school, it doesn't matter. Our sticker price could be $500,000. We would still end up with the same sticker price or same final price, at the end of the day, because we would just lower your cost to get you down close enough to this EFC number that it's affordable for you. So it doesn't matter what the starting cost is. So I'll show you in a minute kind of how that kind of plays out between a private school and a public school. But what I've been telling my students and my families that I work with is that right now, we're in October, you maybe have filled out the FAFSA. It opens October 1st every year. So maybe you filled it out, but nobody has gotten their financial aid package back from any colleges yet. So you don't know if you're a prospective student looking to go to college next year, you don't know yet what your cost is going to be for any college really, unless you've somehow grabbed yourself some full tuition scholarship or full ride scholarship somewhere, which good for you if you have. But for the most part, that's not the case. And so nobody's gotten their final cost yet. And so right now I have a lot of students that will come into my office and they'll say, well, this school's too much money. This school's really going to be more affordable for me, and something like that. And they're just looking at the cost of each of these schools on the internet. They're looking at Albion, where I work. Okay, it's $50,000. They look at Alma and Aquinas here. They're also expensive. They look at some of the smaller, or some of the more state schools with the smaller costs, and they say, well, those look a little more affordable for me and my family. What I tell them is kind of what I just described, that we're all kind of getting you down to this EFC number, whether it's an expensive school or non-expensive school, if you're looking at those sticker prices. And that sticker price isn't going to matter. So looking online and looking at the differences in the cost at this point in the process is fairly useless in my, if I can be a little bit blunt, because you don't know what your final cost is going to be. So what will happen is each of these schools will look at your EFC. They will send you back a financial aid package with your bottom line cost. And that's when you should set those side by side and look at the differences in the cost. Talk to someone who knows what they're looking at in case there's any hidden fees even on that financial aid package. But that's when you should be deciding which school is going to be affordable for you and which ones are not. Because at this point in the process, we don't really know. I get a lot of questions every day. How much is it going to cost to go to your school? And I just shrug my shoulders and say, I have no idea, because I don't have your FAFSA information. So that is kind of how we're lowering the cost. And then If you're looking at schools right now, I would just say, make sure you wait until you get those financial aid awards before you cross anybody off of your list. So Aaron, if we want to skip to the next slide here. So this here is kind of showing the difference. If you're looking at a public school versus a private school. So we're just kind of making just basic guesses at sticker prices here. So a public school might be somewhere in the 20,000 range, 22 we put there. Private school, 50 or above a lot of times. But you can see that this is obviously a made up family who has an EFC after they fill out their FAFSA of $10,000. So this is basically, they filled out their FAFSA in October. It came back and said, this family has $10,000 available to pay for school for this next year. So what a private school did was they looked, and they probably gave them a merit scholarship because they got admitted, and they look at their academics. They give them probably a fairly big academic scholarship. They might have qualified for some grants through the government. You might have heard of things such as the Pell Grant. Here in Michigan, we have something called the Michigan Tuition Grant, but other states have similar sorts of things. And then those are scholarships and grants are both things you're never going to have to pay back. And then you've got your federal student loan. You can see that listed on both sides here. When you fill out the FAFSA, almost every student that gets accepted or gets a financial aid package and filled out the FAFSA is going to offer them $5,500 worth of student loans. So it's always going to be included in kind of this subtraction problem, no matter if you're looking private or public school. And those are loans that you are welcome to accept or decline. That's up to you. You can take part of it if you want to. Those are not something that you have to accept, but obviously you will have to pay them back if you do accept them, but you're going to get them from every school offered to you. So then we got the private school got that family down close to $10,000. Maybe it was 12,000, maybe it was 8,000, maybe it was, it's just somewhere in that ballpark. And then look over at the public school, they're going to do a very similar thing. They're going to look at your EFC, it says $10,000. They might give you a scholarship, they might give you a grant, things like that to bring your price down as much as they can. And then they're also going to be offering you the federal student loan. And then at the end of the day, the price is going to be fairly similar to that private school's cost. So this is just basically, if you don't remember anything else I said, I know some of it can be confusing. It's just remember that no matter what the sticker price is here, both of these schools are offering this student to pay about the same amount of money to go to their institution. And it doesn't matter that the private school cost $30,000 more according to the sticker price. The final cost is going to be about the same. So, yeah.
And we obviously want to touch on that, we all three of us are Michigan schools. So if you're looking at any of our schools, you would be looking at going out of state. And we wanted to touch on that, of course. So, why should you go out of state? There are some amazing colleges in Indiana, depending on where you are in Indiana, like Ohio or Illinois as well. So there are tons of really great schools all over the country, but wanting to touch on, right, of why should you go out of state for school, right? So typically private institutions, and specifically looking at going to a private institution out of state, private institutions don't have a different out-of-state tuition cost. So what their cost is, what their sticker price is, like Travis said, right? Their sticker price is going to be the same for somebody who lives 5 minutes down the road from their college to the same, from across the country. It's going to be the same in-state, out-of-state tuition costs. And whereas public institutions, public schools could potentially have out-of-state tuition costs. So yes, their sticker price is this, but if you live out of state, it's going to be this, and it's going to pretty much equal to maybe what a private institution would cost. So there are, other public institutions that could have incentive programs though. So that's always something really great to look into. Like, for example, Michigan State, right? Looking at a Michigan school, Michigan State, for their out-of-state students, if you, let's say you're from, Indiana, you go to Michigan State. If you live in, Michigan, get a job in Michigan for so many years after you graduate, then they would reimburse that out-of-state tuition costs, because then they would say, like, well, now you're an in-stater, right? So they would be able to reimburse you that cost. So there are some institutions, public institutions specifically, that have those kind of incentive programs, but that would mean, right, that you're staying in that state potentially, right? That's just kind of one example, but good questions to ask public institutions, and even private institutions who maybe do potentially have an out-of-state tuition cost. But like I said, public schools are typically going to have that different out-of-state tuition cost, whereas private institutions aren't normally going to have that. They're going to have the same sticker price across the board. So some schools could also have out-of-state scholarships. So you are looking at an out-of-state school, well, you're going to get a scholarship just because you don't live in Michigan or you don't live in Illinois. So they're going to be able to have different scholarships for you. So that's another really great thing to ask public, private institutions, whatever that may be. And then, right, if we're in the process right now of doing our college search, maybe check in with out-of-state schools to see if they have reimbursement programs. I believe all three of our institutions have reimbursement programs for out-of-state students. So, we'll, at Aquinas, we will reimburse, up to so much of your transportation costs, or some people will do the same thing, or maybe that'll also include hotel potentially. So it just kind of depends. You kind of have to ask those institutions. But again, there are incentives, right, to going out of state a lot of the time, whether that be after you graduate or, like I said, with out-of-state scholarships. So a lot of opportunities for going out of state. So don't ever want you guys to we don't want you to ever rule out private institutions. We don't ever want you to rule out going out of state. That's for sure. So we wanted to show this graph too, or this kind of graphic, because this is going to college, choosing a college is an investment in your future, right? Yes, Travis, I think hit the nail on the head when it comes to cost and affordability for colleges, but ultimately remember, right, this is an investment for you in your future, no matter what college you end up going to. If it's one of ours, fantastic. If it is a different institution, that's great too, but remember that this is an investment for you. So we do, and we are, I think all three of us are probably pretty big advocates for private higher education. So, private college graduates finish on time, right? It is known that 59% of graduates of smaller private schools finish within 4 years, whereas, 38% finish within 4 years too, right? If affordability is what we're thinking of, well, we want to be in college for the least amount of time we can, and the goal is 4 years, right? So it's just an important decision to really make, and I don't think any of us want you to walk away thinking that a private institution is out of reach for you, because we definitely have options. Private institutions definitely have options for you to, like I said, invest in you and invest in your education.
All right, my dog might join into the presentation, so I apologize in advance if he decides to say some words. We wanted to kind of give you a little snapshot about, there he is, about students who have decided to go to private colleges. This first one, excuse me, I'm so sorry. This first one is Lene, and she is from Michigan, going to Michigan. So this is good for Indiana students wanting to go in-state to a private institution. And then our next one is going to be Molly, who's actually a student from Indiana who chose to go out of state to a Michigan private school.
Hi everyone, my name is Lene and I am a junior at Alma College located in Michigan. I am majoring in psychology and minoring in biology and involved in the Alma Symphony Orchestra. I'm originally from Muskegon, Michigan, but I chose to go to Alma College because of the family aspect of Alma. Everyone treats each other like family here ever since my first time on campus in 2018. Everyone has been so nice and welcoming to me. My favorite part of being in Alma Scott is that I've had the opportunity to get to know my professors with small classes, and this is very crucial when in college. It's so beneficial to know that I'm able to meet one-on-one with my professors. Creating that friendship with my professors just makes class more engaging and fun. So yeah, that's just a little.
Hi guys, my name is Molly. I'm a senior here at Alma. I'm double majoring in history and political science. I'm also involved with Greek life here on campus, and I'm a member of our award-winning Model United Nations team. I'm originally from New Carlisle, Indiana, but I consider myself a part-time Michigander. When I was looking for schools, I was convinced I wanted to go to a big school out of state, but I was amazed when I toured Alma at how many opportunities a small school had for me. All the resources for students were extremely accessible, and all the professors seemed genuinely invested in my success. My favorite part of being a Scot, though, is all the opportunities Alma offers me off campus, whether it's working at a refugee camp in Kenya, interning at a nonprofit in Washington, or competing with our Model United Nations team in New York. Alma has truly let me do it all. We wish you the best of luck in your search process, and we hope that you find out what Alma can do for you.
All right, so sorry, that was a little shameless plug. We honestly are here to really help you find your institution, whether it be public, private, wherever you want to go, in state, out of state. We just really hope that we were able to answer a little bit of, give you a better understanding of the differences between public and private institutions, and really help you in your college search process, really figure out what and where you want to be.
Do you have any questions? You can pop them in the Q&A. If not, that's fine too. Like Erin said, I mean, I think at the end of the day, the three of us are just here to help you in this college process. You know, it led me to Aquinas, you know, my college process. So, but at the end of the day, that's just what us as admissions counselors are here to do, help you figure out the right fit. And maybe that even means figuring out what you don't want, which is just as important sometimes as what you do want. But yeah, we're just you know, glad you guys could join us too. And us give you a little bit of a perspective between public versus private. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say as you're looking at schools, maybe if you are like a senior this fall or something like that, to find someone that you trust, whether it's someone at your institution, someone who knows what they're talking about, that they can look at some of the financial aid stuff with you and look at the schools with you and the different opportunities that each school can provide to you. And again, just make sure it's someone that you trust, is not trying to push you one way or another. Even I like to think that someone like myself or even Aaron or Lindsay on their campuses, obviously sometimes we can be looked at a little bit as like salesmen for our school. But I think, I mean, I know the three of us well enough and a lot of other admission counselors that we're not all like that. There are some who are very salesmen and they only care about their institution. But I always say it's not really that helpful for myself or for my school or for the student if you come to my school and then you hate it and then you leave after a semester. So I do a lot of meetings with my students and just kind of give a very broad overview of college in general and kind of try to help them figure out what they might be looking for. And I think a lot of us admission counselors are like that. So if you can find someone at a college or your high school or wherever that you trust, and make sure that, again, that they kind of know what they're talking about, especially I went through all that financial aid stuff, make sure they know kind of what it is, what's real and what's not real, that you can talk with throughout the process. I think that's extremely important.
Yeah, definitely. I think Travis really kind of echoed what I was going to say, and just make sure that you're making this decision for yourself, because you are going to be the one investing the time, the money, and all of the effort and energy into this decision. And so make sure that you're going to, like, you feel at home wherever you choose, private, public, doesn't matter, as long as you have that feeling of home and comfort, because you will be investing time and money here. So it's something that I always tell students, it's kind of like finding the love of your life. And so, you know, you're going to have to go on campus to really get a feel for you know, how it feels. And if you can't make it on campus because they're not open, make sure that you do as much research as you can. A lot of campuses will like allow you to just walk campus, not necessarily come for a campus visit, but just get a feeling of what it would be like to walk to your classes from your residence hall, or things like that. It's always like finding the vibe of the campus and really finding where you really fit in. And it may take a number of times and a number of interactions for you to really find the one, hence falling in love. You may have a hunch at the beginning, but you got to go on the dates. You got to put on time before, you know, you really make that commitment. So don't be afraid if you go and you're like, I don't know. Give it some time, give it some effort. Like Travis said, go through the entire process, right? Because you want to see that financial aid package and what it actually looks like versus what the internet tells you it's going to look like. So definitely go through the process and make sure that this is the right decision for you before anyone else.
I love that, Erin. Falling in love. That was perfect. So we had a question pop in. Obviously, depending on the school, is it generally better to obtain a dual major or private school rather than a public for both cost and class size reasons? That's a really great question. I can tell you, I'll take it first, and then obviously Travis and Erin will chime in as well. But I ended up actually doing a double major at Aquinas. I did a double major in theater and community leadership. So, and what was really great was I still graduated in 4 years. I changed my major 3 times, you know, and it was all thanks to my academic advisor, to my professors that really kept me on the right track. So, you know, depending on a school, I would agree. Yes, it truly depends on the school. It depends on you as a student too, right? You know, whatever you kind of want to do. If you want to do a double major, if that's kind of your passion, then you need to look at schools that are going to allow you to do that, right? Private institutions are a really great option for double majors. I think especially like liberal arts schools too, right? When you're taking a number of general education courses on top of whatever major you end up deciding on. So it's quite interesting, right? To try to figure that out. I mean, I didn't know I was going to graduate with a double major until I got into it. So I think it just really depends on you, but at the end of the day, it's finding a school that's going to allow you to grow and potentially change your mind as well. I think that's important.
The question also talks about cost a little bit. So thinking about I believe Lindsay talked about the slide where it says 59% of private graduates are graduating in 4 years as opposed to 38 or something like that. I actually think that the private school number for a lot of private schools is actually much higher than that. I think probably for the 3 of us, a lot of schools, I think the school I work at is in the 90s, and I think that's the case for a lot of smaller schools. And I always mention to people that that's something to think about when you're thinking about cost, because you're going to pay only for 4 years instead of 5 or 6 years or whatever. And that's where a private school can be really good for something like that, especially a small, like a liberal arts school where we don't really have the problems that some of the bigger schools have with getting you into your prereq classes and getting you through the programs on time. That's sometimes tough even with one major at a big public school to get done in 4 years. Whereas a private school, you're able to kind of go at the pace that you need to go and get the classes done that you need to get done on time. And that means if you're a dual major, I'm not promising to you that you're going to get done in 4 years, but I would probably put money down that going to a small liberal arts school as opposed to a big public school, that you're probably going to finish sooner with a dual major at a small private school.
Yeah, and it definitely depends on what you want to do your dual majors in. There are some, especially at bigger schools, that are doable. You can add a few classes here and there. Like Travis said, it may depend on, you know, how long you want to be there. Whereas with smaller private, like liberal arts schools, like for example, Lindsay's theater and community management, correct? Is it something like that? Community engagement, something like that. That's like very different. And so it's a lot easier to do that at a liberal arts school, to have 2 very different majors. Whereas mainly with public schools, you'll want to find something that's like biochem and chemistry that's very similar, that you have to take a few extra classes, or else you'll have to kind of go down the entire different track and you'll be there for another 4 years. Class sizes I wanted to touch on as well. For the majority of your classes at public schools, not talking about honors programs or things like that, it's going to be much larger than at smaller schools. And so that's another thing to kind of think about as well. You don't have to do a dual major either to kind of figure out like where, depending on what you want to do, you don't always need a dual major, and it doesn't always look better, to be honest. So a lot of it is based on the experiences that you have. So if you have one major, but you have a bunch of these outside, we call it experiential learning opportunities, and you have a lot of this experience out in the field, you know, getting involved in research, all these things outside, it looks a lot better than having that other class, or that other major, excuse me. And so it's all about what you're interested in and really what it is. It's definitely doable both places. It just depends on, you know, what you want to do and kind of what's most important to you.
And I just wanted to touch real quick too on that, at least at Aquinas, it might be Travis Aaron for you guys as well at your institutions, but there's a difference between a dual major and a double major, right? So the double major is going to take every class that's required for that program in this one and in this one, right? That's what I did. I did a double major, whereas a dual major can be very different. It can be the best of this world and the best of this world combined to make one actual major. So like for us, we have a ton of dual options for business, right? So business and communication dual major, business and sports management dual major. So, and that's taking the best of both worlds to combine it to one program. So I wanted to just make sure that, because I'm sure you guys have dual majors as well, it's a little different, like the double versus the dual. And it might be different at public institutions, whereas like dual majors at a public institution are truly like everything from every major. But I think it kind of depends from institution to institution. Any other questions? All right, I think we might be done.
Okay, let's see. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining us tonight. Thank you to the presenters, especially. After you close this window, there'll be a quick 4-question survey. Please take that. It helps us as we plan for future events. Feel free to sign up for more sessions. The schedule again is at inacac.org, and the sessions are being recorded as a reminder, so those will also be available after, within about a week, also on inacac.org. Thank you again, everyone. Have a good night.